Tom, first of all, this has taken a long time to get this Rafah crossing opened. I suppose it's a welcome move that it is open, but why has it taken 3 weeks?
Well, look, it's really a very complicated crossing to open for exactly the reasons that Philip was talking about there, which is that Egypt and Israel both need to agree, and both sides are, of course, concerned about the possible departure of individuals who wouldn't be approved for travel, and that's a matter of concern for everybody. What we've done, what the Prime Minister, the Foreign Secretary and many of us have been doing is speaking to colleagues and partners in the region and in organisations that can help to help open the Rafah crossing to look after British people, because, you know, the prime aim of the British government is the protection of the British people, and that's what we're working on.
Tom, I'd like to ask you about potential protests over Remembrance weekend, particularly on Armistice Day on Saturday the 11th of November. Huge amount of concern over potential disruption due to pro-Palestine marches. I understand that you have actually written to the Mayor of London, the Met Police, Westminster Council, asking that these protests be banned, the pro-Palestine protests be banned from the area on that day. Your colleague Henry Smith, he says that the military should be involved if needed. What do you say to that?
Well, the military will be involved, of course, because many military people will be marching, will be on duty in bands or in other roles. And many of us, the old and bold as it's called, getting older by the day, certainly will be around. Because this is a moment when many of us will be getting together and standing with friends who we fought side by side with, and now we'll be remembering those friends who didn't make it home. And so it's a day of great pride for a lot of us, but it's also a day of grief. So I hope my concerns are registered, and I know that Chris Philp and the Home Secretary and others have also raised concerns, and it's an important moment for us all as a country, and, you know, for many of us. The cenotaph is sacred ground, so let's remember that.
I meant in terms of policing the protests. If there is disruption, do you have faith that the police will manage this in an appropriate way?
Look, I hope that the police will make any requests that they need for any extra support that they want from whoever they need it. You know, at times like this, it's not unusual for other police forces to support the Met. It's a big day. There's a lot of pressure on them. But this is really a policing event. It's not a military event in that sense. It's not. It's an event for the military, but the security is best provided really by the police. So I hope the Met will ask for the resources they need.
What do you say to those who say that British servicemen and women who've fought in various wars have fought for the very freedoms that are now exercised by people who may want to say things that might be viewed as distasteful, that might be viewed as inappropriate? But after all, it was the people that we honour this weekend who fought for their right to do so.
Well, you're absolutely right, Tom. I mean, you know, those of us who were lucky enough to wear the Queen's uniform, or now the King's uniform, served in order to protect the freedoms that we enjoy, and those are freedoms under the law, let's not forget. And so what we need to do is to make sure that everybody is exercising their freedoms, and freedom of speech is one of those, in order to be able to enjoy, you know, what's wonderful about living in the United Kingdom, what's wonderful about being British. And I think we can do that, and I think the policing does do that. What it does is it protects individual rights to freedom of speech and protest, but it also protects the rights of others to be quiet and to remember and to have that moment of grief that we share.
So, Tom, just to clarify, you don't believe the protests should be banned altogether on Armistice Day, but that they should be moved elsewhere and made sure that they don't interrupt or disrupt military remembrance?
So, look, I think the priority has to be to allow people to have that moment of grief, that moment of national mourning that we share together on the 11th of November at 11 o'clock, and of course on Remembrance Sunday as well. And I think that's absolutely where the focus should be. Of course there are rights to protest at other times. Of course it's right that people should express their views freely. But what's also right is that others have the right to come together and to be quiet and to be still for those 2 minutes which really unite us as a country and remind us of the huge sacrifices paid by so many.
Now, of course, something that was crucial to the war effort 70 years ago was Bletchley Park. And over the last 2 days, we've seen the most monumental summit of world leaders representing countries from the United States to China coming together in the United Kingdom and agreeing some foundational work on a global system of AI regulation. But it all ended in a curious way last night as we dashed down to Lancaster House, where the Prime Minister interviewed the richest man in the world. Why did Rishi Sunak sit down with Elon Musk last night?
So Elon is one of those remarkable people in the world who has genuinely transformed two industries. One is the electrical vehicle industry and the other is the rocketing industry, and is now involved in artificial intelligence. So I think the Prime Minister was doing absolutely the right thing, and something that, frankly, he's pretty uniquely qualified to do amongst world leaders, which is to prepare not only our country, but countries around the world for this global revolution that artificial intelligence will bring. I mean, Tom, you know that there are even now people working on ways of having targeted medicines to treat your cancer and not mine, or to treat, the way that you might need muscle regeneration or whatever. And there are also different ways in which people are trying to use AI to improve education. In my patch, there's a fantastic school called Hillview that uses the arts and music to teach people maths and English. And there are any number of different individual ways we learn better. Well, artificial intelligence will make that even more accessible, even more possible. So having Rishi and Elon talking together about the possibilities and the hopes and for the future, I think is fantastic, and demonstrates that this event in Bletchley is going to be one of the things that the government is remembered for, not in 5 or 10 years' time, but in 20 or 50.
Tom, it was a little bit deferential, wasn't it? It was a bit of a love-in. He said, "You're known for being such a brilliant innovator and technologist, and it's been a huge privilege and pleasure to have you here." This is one of Rishi Sunak's icons, isn't it?
Guys, look, you're polite to your interviewers, aren't you? I mean, when you're interviewing people, you're very often courteous to them. It shouldn't be surprising that the Prime Minister's courteous to Elon Musk. And yeah, I mean, he's an inspirational guy in many ways for many people. I mean, he certainly raises public opinion in various different ways. But what he's done is he's transformed two major industries. That's a remarkable achievement, and he's done so, and now is approaching artificial intelligence in a way that is open and is engaged, and that is looking for the ways that we protect ourselves as well as we open up the opportunities. And I think what Rishi's done with the AI Safety Summit, I think what the Prime Minister's doing is making sure that Britain is front and centre, the regulations of the safety script, if you like, that will keep us all safe, and getting Elon to help, but also getting people like Mustafa Suleyman and Demis Hassabis, and of course the people who've actually brought this together, Matt Clifford and Ian Hogarth, is a fantastic achievement. We're demonstrating that Britain is not just one of the world's great AI countries, and it really is. We're up there with the United States and China as the world's greatest AI powers, but we're also setting the rules for the future and demonstrating that we're ready to set the agenda for others to follow.
Now, it was remarkable to see Ian Hogarth last night chatting with will.i.am in the audience of the conversation between the Prime Minister and Elon Musk. But I do wonder, that conversation did start looking to the very long term, did start talking about things such as a universal high income, a world where no one has to work. Is this getting a bit too highfalutin for what the Prime Minister might be better fixed on, which is the issues that matter in the here and now rather than in 50 or 100 years' time?
I think one of the things that nobody will ever say about the Prime Minister is that he doesn't do the detail on the here and now. He really, really does. He's a guy who really puts the work in today, and so I think it's an amazing skill to be able to put in the work on today, on whatever we need for today's economy, for today's healthcare, for today's security, and also to have a vision for the future. And I think having that balance is incredibly important. What the Prime Minister's doing with Elon, but also, as you rightly put it, Ian's doing it with will.i.am, is being able to set out or to think about the future with visionaries who have imagination and drive and have demonstrated again and again that they're very often ahead of the curve.